2024, I don't know how else to say it. I thought it was a pretty fucking weak year for UFC fight nights. I'm sorry if that's a hot take, but a lot of these, in terms of the lineup, were really underwhelming, or a lot of like random ass matchups, not intriguing main events. A majority of these fucking cards took place in the Apex. And Dana's saying, yeah, what was the question? Yeah, we'll get out of the Apex this year. We're going to go back to the States. Been saying that since 2022, 3, 4, and now it's going to be 5. And don't get me wrong, I feel like maybe this could be the year they finally get out of the Apex, start putting a little bit more depth into their fight cards, because they've been fucking lacking the past couple years. And I feel like especially this year, as we're going to see, but I'm hoping that the fight nights can get a little bit back on track. I feel like we're not asking too much, you know? But we have just been utterly, I feel like, fucking disappointed this year. And we're going to be getting into it. So obviously there were cards that really did deliver. A lot of cards, I feel like, that weren't expected to deliver, that went above and beyond. So we're going to be getting into those, and we're also going to be getting into the fucking trash. And like, we're going to be talking about this. And the first one that we're going to be getting into is a rough one. To be fair, one of the worst. It's Martin Tybura versus Sergey Spivac. I swear we're going to see the fucking penteology, the quadrilogy for this fucking shit. Just seeing Tybura getting a recent win. And hey, I'm happy for the guy, but looking at the state of the fucking heavyweight division, man, don't be surprised. So, yeah, we're just going to put this immediately in the F tier, y'all. All right? This took place in the Apex. 3 out of 10 fights were finished. This was genuinely the day or the night or whatever that Lucas Tracy retired. All right? It was that bad of a card. I know it's not related, but there was such a bad energy, I feel like. Tell me if I'm wrong here. There was such a bad energy in the air for that fight week, because like just nobody gave a shit about the matchups. Nobody gave a shit about the main event. It was just again and again in the Apex. This was in August, so it was just so, there was nothing on this card. You could be like, yeah, what about Chris Gutierrez versus Kwang Lee, man? Get the fuck out with that. All right, this was a really weak fight card. There wasn't a lot of substance to this. Yeah, the main event ended in a round 1 sub, but it's just like there was no investment in it, in the build up, or even like announcer yelling their names to the time the finish was over. Like this card really just had nothing. So we're just going to put in the F tier. It was pretty fucking weak. So moving on to the next one, we are going to be doing UFC St. Louis, and I'm going to put this in the A tier. I actually thought this was a really good fight night. I'm curious what other people thought of this, but 5 out of 12 fights finished on this card. Joaquin Buckley, obviously, I feel like was the biggest draw to it, or the biggest kind of story going in, because he was stepping in pretty late notice, like a month out, maybe a little less, I don't fucking know. And he had a great win over Nursultan Rozenstruik. It was a pretty well-rounded, good back-and-forth matchup. Obviously, Buckley just got the better of him in most of the exchanges on the ground, exchanges on the feet. Buckley looked fucking great. Obviously, was the hometown hero. The call-out afterwards kind of fucking ruined it, but it is what it is. He got that knockout over Wonderboy. We won't dwell on it. Derek Lewis, round 3 KO in the main event. Carlos Olberg with a round 1 KO over Alonzo Menefield. Diego Ferreira with the fucking round 3 knockout over Matus Rebecki. Don't get me wrong, there were a bit of low moments. We did have Rebellious to Spain getting fraud checked by Waldo Cortes. Waldo Cortes Acosta. That was a bit of a bummer, but I guess it needed to happen, man. You get these fucking fraud checks once in a while, but I think that was the fight that opened up the card. I know Dana was pissed about it, but whatever, man. There was a lot of substance to this card. Even the prelims, Terrence McKinney, fucking brutal round 1 KO loss, but Sean Woodson and Charles Johnson had great hometown wins. Chase Hooper, Jesus Christ, as Dana White fucking says. If you didn't know, now you know. Type shit. Oh, okay, was that bad? I don't fucking know. But Chase Hooper, man, he had an insanely dominant victory over Borshev, and then got the round 2 sub. It was insane ground and pound, insane controlling wherever the fuck he wanted the fight to go. Insane dominance from Chase Hooper. This fight card had a lot of depth to it. I liked it. Not the most finishes, only 5 out of 12, but like it had a lot of action, a lot of consistency. We're gonna put it in the A tier. Moving on up next, took place October 19th. Hernandez versus Pereira in the Apex. This fight this fight night fucking sucked. It's going in the F tier. Once again, we're just going to start filling that up, I guess. But yeah, 2 out of 11 fights were finished. The main event, it was a really cool main event. It was kind of good build up, because we knew we had a really intriguing prospect versus prospect matchup. The winner was going to stay in the top 10 to 5 for the next few years to come, and was going to get the better of a lot of these matchups, and then the loser was probably going to get exposed, and that's what happened. I mean, it was just pure fucking domination from Hernandez. It was entertaining, don't get me wrong. It was a good, entertaining fight, but just pure domination from Hernandez. I mean, Pereira had fucking nothing. I mean, Rob Font had a pretty cool comeback, shut down Kyler Phillips. A lot of people fuck with Rob Font, so it was cool to see him get a comeback. He was like a plus 500 dog, showed big experience. Charles Johnson had a fight with Sumidarji, and he went 4-0 2024. That was cool. That was a pretty solid fight. There were just a few big upsets on this card. I feel like that was just the main thing. Rebellis to Spain lost to Austin Lane, and I'm pretty sure he's cut from the UFC because of that now. Darren Elkins and Daniel Pineda actually was a pretty fucking good fight. I got to give credit where it's due. But just a lot of decisions on this card, man. A big majority. Not a lot of momentum going into it fight week. It was just overall pretty depressing card. Main event was really cool. especially in concept, but fucking card just under-delivered. It was shit, man. We're going to put it in the F tier. So we're going to be moving on up next, we're going to be doing Namajunas versus Cortez. I forgot who the fuck Namajunas was originally supposed to face. July was a fucking eternity ago. But you know what, dude? This was a pretty solid fight night. I liked it. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Probably a strong B tier. It was pretty good. The Denver crowd, man, was actually a really good one. Like, they gave a really good energy to the fight. The main event was pretty lackluster in terms of not only delivery, but just like the build-up. I mean, just having these random ass WWMA headliners, dude, or fucking co-mains, it gets kind of ridiculous, and we're gonna see it a lot in this fucking tier list. And it just sets kind of the tone of the card, unfortunately. And it just, like, not a lot of hype behind it, and the actual fight wasn't good. Solid moments, but still. It was a weak co-main as well between Salikov and Ponzinibbio. Gene Silva, though, and Drew Dober had one of the best fucking fights of the year. I gotta give credit. That was an amazing scrap, and Gene Silva stepping in on a week notice after a win was insane. Maybe 2 weeks, I don't know, but that was a crazy fight. Gabriel Bonfim, though, going to a fucking decision on this one. Cody Brundage with a lot of the back of the head shots from Abdul Razak. And now here's the thing, though. It was pretty depressing to watch. I know that Brundage too was like the card opener, at least for the main card. But they were clear back of the head shots, all right? I know Cody Brundage is a fucking meme. It's easy to shit at him, and people enjoy it, but it's just still, man. It was pretty fucked up, but still, that was kind of a low spot. But Charles Johnson getting the round 3 KO over Joshua Van, that was a great fight in general. I mean, pretty good. And then ending the way it did was crazy. Montel Jackson had an insane, like, 10-20 second KO over Damone Blackshear. That was fucking nuts. Julian Arosa kind of, pretty depressing for all the parlays, because Christian, he got the round 1 sub over Christian Rodriguez. So a lot of ups and a lot of downs, a bit of like surprise on this card. 6 out of 12 fights were finished, so it was pretty good. It's a strong B. I liked it. It's just the main and the co-main were pretty weak, kind of drags it down, and a bit of low spots at times, but it is what it is. Up next, we're going to be talking about August 24th, Jared Cannonier versus Cal Borralho. This sucked that this was in the Apex, because this was a great card. We're going to put it in A. It's a strong A, man. 5 out of 11 fights were finished. It was a really good main event. I mean, it was an intriguing matchup to fucking begin with, because you had Jared Cannonier, who had a quick turnaround, man, because he's 40-41. He was so close to just being close to a title shot. He was on a good run. Had a pretty early kind of bullshit stoppage to Amaimov, and Amaimov's good. Don't get me wrong, he's on a run right now himself, but Jared kind of got fucked over, and he wanted a quick turnaround. Kai Borralho, though, is fucking dangerous, really well-rounded, and it just completely delivered. I love when we have these main events, dude, these really good fights, and they live up to it, and it was a great fight. If anything, it surprised us how really good it was. And as well on the card, I mean, we had a sick comeback from round 2 from GM3 over Shabazian. That was really cool to see. We had a wild round 1 knockout with a sick elbow from Michael Morales and Neil Magny, dude. I believe that was the card opener. That was fucking devastating. I know getting a win over Neil Magny is not the greatest thing in the world, but still, man, it was a brutal knockout, and it's a win over a ranked guy. Ryan Loder. Okay, so we also had the tough finales, the 2 tough finales on this card. They were both solid. One of them was a lot more entertaining than the other one, but still, one of them was Ryan Loder getting the good TKO. It was solid, but Maron Santos 15-1 was just kind of the highlight. It was a sick round 2 knockout. We also had Wang Kong, who kind of just got fraud check. We'll get to that, but she had a cool round 1 KO. Overall, it was a great card. There was good action, good fights throughout, good finishes throughout. We're going to put it in the A tier. It was good. Moving on, up next, we're going to be doing the July 20th, Lemos versus Jandiroba. Dude, this was probably, out of all the cards that you're going to see on this fucking list this year, dude, this was probably getting the most heat, the most shit. Not just in terms of the main event, people being fed up with the Apex, but also just the weakness of the card, the lack of depth, the lack of name value, just the most random matchups. A lot of people were shitting on this card. A lot of people were saying, worst card of all time, worst card of the year by far. And it's pretty valid, man. I know we've seen a lot of rough cards, but this was just, there was no fucking substance in the build up to this. Nobody gave a shit. Everybody was fucking heated. You're seeing a bunch of the MMA YouTubers, they were making all these videos and rants, like at this point, just about ranting about how shit fight nights are. That's how bad the build up to this was. But you know what, dude? We're gonna put this in B, a solid B. Like, it actually really, really surprised everybody. The main event itself was actually kind of entertaining, man. Steve Garcia had a really sick round 1 knockout. In the co-main, Bruno Silva had a nice finish over Durden round 2. Cody Gibson had a nice round 1 sub, I believe, to set the tone of the card in the early prelims. So this was actually, in terms of just delivery, this card fucking went went above and beyond. It really delivered. What should have been a D and an F ended up being, you could argue this was an A. It was nice to see it kind of proved us all wrong because, Jesus, we were fucking dreading it. So moving on to Jan versus Figgy. So we're going to put this in the S tier. I'm trying to keep the S tier pretty sacred, but this is worthy of being up there. This just went above and beyond as well, man. I knew everybody thought this was going to be a good fight night. Some people are saying it was weak, but come the fuck on. I think a lot of people were excited for this card going into it, and as we should have been. It fucking completely delivered. 6 out of 13 fights were finished. A fantastic main event. The China crowd and the China athletes were fantastic, to be honest. The co-main was kind of meh, but Wang Kong also got exposed, but that was kind of fucking entertaining in its own right. Muslim Salikov had an insane finish in round 1. So did Zhang Min Yang. That was another one that was just devastating. Carlos Ulberg and Volkan Ozdemir, they had a pretty good fight. Obviously, the main event kind of stole the show in terms of just really high quality fight in terms of not just entertainment, but skill for skill. But Ulberg and Ozdemir was good as well. There were other sick finishes and other sick moments on the card. I know the lady that's a full-time doctor had an amazing head kick KO as well, I believe. This was a great card, worthy of being an S tier. Just a lot of good shit went down in this one. So moving on to Burns versus Brady. This is an interesting one. I feel like you could argue A, B, and C at the same time, really. I mean, it's kind of just depending on how you looked at it. 6 out of 12 fights were finished. I thought it was a pretty good card. It was solid, so I'm going to put it in B. I didn't really enjoy it probably as much as the Denver card, but it was still good. We got to see really elite grappling in the main event. It wasn't the most exciting fight, don't get me wrong, and it did go all 5, but a lot of people figured it would have. But we got to see elite grappling. It was something, and it, moved Brady up into the top 5. Steve Garcia on another mean I feel like I just brought him up, but still on a fucking mean streak. Another round 1 KO. That's always good to set the vibes. Cody Durden fucking straight up retired. Matt Schnell, that was a good win. Natalia Silva and Jessica Andrade. I don't talk about WWE enough or at all, to be honest. For those in my channel, I just don't. I'm sorry, but it's just this was actually a really good scrap. And then kind of some mid spots at time on the card. But then when the highs were high, they were high. Does that fucking sentence make sense? No, but yeah, Burns vs. Brady, it was solid. We're going to put it in a B. Probably a low B, but it was still, it was an enjoyable card. So moving on to Cannonier versus Imavov. Well, we're also going to put this in the B tier. Jared Cannonier, man, versus Imavov. It was fun while it lasted. Kind of a good scrap, but the early bullshit. And it's unfortunate, like I was saying earlier, especially just this critical fucking point in Jared Cannonier's career, man. A lot of people were rooting for him, was on a good tear. But either way, the main event, it was getting some hype around it. It was a good main event to have. This took place in Louisville, so good to have it back in front of a crowd. And they haven't been in Louisville in a few years, so I'm happy for y'all, dude. But come back to fucking Chicago, dude. God damn. 6 out of 14 fights were finished. Dominic Reyes returned on this card. That was fantastic. He's punching the canvas after. It was crazy. Round 1 knockout over Dustin Jacoby. Raul Rosas Jr. had a nice round 2 sub over Ricky Turcios. That was fun to see. A wild spinning back elbow from fucking Bruno Ferreira. That was absolutely brutal. Carlos Prates as well for being brutal. A good fucking knockout in round 1. In terms of the beginning of the card, though, there were 6 decisions in a row. A lot of them were kind of lackluster. 3 were split. Majority were like the WWMA fights, but the second half of the card was really good. It carried. Good main card. Yeah, it's a good B tier, solid B tier. Moving on to UFC Edmonton that just took place. Moreno versus Albazi. We're gonna put this in the C tier. I feel like maybe people would put this higher. I could totally see it, but no, dude, I fell asleep during this one. It's not even making that up. I usually don't fall asleep. I've fallen asleep, I believe, only to 2. Edmonton, man, it was the main card that got me. All right, there was just some point in the middle of the main card, around like the co-main too. I just fucking snoozed. I woke up in the fucking genuine middle of Moreno and Albazi. I slept for 2 or 3 fights. So, granted, I did rewatch them, so don't be like, you don't even know the fight, dude. You can't rate this in C tier. This was a great card. But no, dude, it was kind of mid. All right, 4 out of the 13 fucking fights were finished. Mike Mallet carried a meh, just pretty boring W. I get that the opponent too was kind of pitter-pattering and really overly keeping the distance, so it's not all on him, but it was just a meh way to start the main card. There was just a solid amount of snoozer fights throughout the card, just main card, prelims, whatever. Charles Jourdain, though, sick round 2 sub over Victor Henry. Brandon Moreno put on an absolute masterclass against Albazi. That was entertaining, and Canada at least fucking won some fights this time. They absolutely got fucked over. Did they have any Canadians win at 297 the last time? No. I don't know. It's pretty rough for Canadian MMA, dude. It's pretty fucking rough. So I'm glad that they got some wins. Entertaining ones, mostly no, but just kind of a mid card. Was it bad? No, because there were some good highlights, but you know, and it's always nice to see Brandon Moreno back in the win column. But yeah, we're gonna put this in C. This fight card just didn't really have it for me. So moving on to Moicano versus Saint Denis, UFC Paris. So we're gonna put this in A tier. I actually really enjoyed it. I feel like a lot of people did. 6 out of 4. 6 out of 14. The fights were finished. The Paris crowd, man. Say what you want, man, but it's an entertaining crowd to have. Like, they get really into it. They're passionate about it. Does France have the best fighters? No. Okay. No, it's been getting better over the years, but it's definitely not been the best foundation as of yet. But the crowd and the fans do get the fuck into it, which is good for, you know, setting a good tone, good energy. The main event was really sick. Just a really interesting matchup to even begin with on paper, but it just delivered. Moicano Cash is a huge dog. I'm a big Moicano guy, so that was awesome to see. Imavov versus Allen was weird. Really lackluster first round, but the second and third were actually pretty entertaining. Brendan Allen, though, some very low fight IQ going on, was kind of fighting drunk man. Not RDR DDP drunk man, but a drunk man in its own right, kind of floppy style, man. It was very bizarre, but still, Joe Anderson Brito had a solid fight against William Gomez, but he got fucking robbed. Brian Battle, though, sick knockout over Kevin Jusset. That was awesome, and a really cool promo afterwards. I'm a big Brian Battle guy as well, so like, seeing him Moicano get wins were awesome. Morgan Charrier, Farasiam's underrated as fuck as well, dude. They had really good KOs. Chris Duncan started the card with a good round 1 sub. This was a great card. This was a strong A. Up next, we're going to be doing Moreno versus Royval. This was sometime in February, the 24th, in Mexico City. So 6 out of 12 of the fights were finished. We're going to put it in C tier, which might be controversial. I feel like people will put it higher or want it to be higher, but I don't know, man. This card didn't really have it for me. Okay, you know, the Royval Moreno, you know, solid main event scrap, and both guys, you know, coming off losses to Pantoja, so it wasn't really getting like the most hype going into it. Brian Ortega, though, versus Rayo Rodriguez, that was sick, and the comeback from Ortega was fucking awesome. Round 3 sub, all subs, and only 1 knockout on this card in terms of finishes, so that was interesting to see. It's not necessarily bad, but Manuel Torres got a sick round 1 sub over Chris Duncan. There were some fun fights hidden throughout the card, don't get me wrong. 4 splits, which is, you know, fucking 4 splits, dude, but it is what it is. I don't know, this card was just kind of underwhelming to me. There were some good moments for sure, and I get why people would put this higher, but it's just kind of lackluster for me. I wouldn't put it in C. Sorry to have Moreno. I like Moreno too, so having him back-to-back in C as the headliner, I'm sorry. Up next, we're going to be doing Magny versus Prates. Put it up there in S tier, man. Put it up in the next tier. This fight card was fucking insane. This was another one of those instances where a lot of people were shitting on this card. 100th anniversary of the Apex. Fucking sue us all, dude. But a lot of people were shitting on this card going into it. The main event, like, yeah, it's a good fight, but it's not like the most wild matchup you can get. Carlos Prates has a lot of hype, but just like Magny in the Apex, that makes sense. And the card did have some good matchups hidden in there, but overall there wasn't a lot of hype to it, but the card absolutely fucking delivered. I mean, I think the highest finish rate out of any fight night the entire year, I'm pretty sure for sure. Sorry to tism you out right there, but 8 out of 11 fights were finished. So many finishes. The sick main event, KO from Carlos Prates. RDR had a nice debut. Mansour Abdul Malik. I'm fucking up that name, dude. But that was a really good round 1 KO. Nice debut from him. Trayshawn Gore, Damone Blackshear had good round 1 subs. It's unfortunate the crowd didn't get to see this one, besides the fucking 7 people that are in there. But yeah, this is an S tier card. It delivered. It was really fun. So moving on up next to Royval versus Taira. You know what? I'm going to put this in B, like a solid B. This was a good card, to be honest. There were some really good moments. 5 out of 12 of the fights were finished. This took place in the Apex, go figure. 4 split decisions. You know, kind of bizarre. You don't like seeing that, but still, it was honestly a sick as fuck main event. The main event was a really good fight. Always love seeing the flyweights. Like, flyweight, people forget, man. But flyweights, dude, their fights always don't get enough credit. Like, the flyweights, I get it. Are they the biggest finishers most of the time? No. But, like, flyweights can get the fuck after it sometimes. And, like, some of these flyweight main events, like, yeah, they kind of flop or they're not the best. But, like, honestly, a lot of them are pretty good. So seeing Royval and Taira get the fuck after it, and like just a really well-rounded scrap. I mean, we got to see kind of all areas, like nice exchanges on the feet, good grappling exchanges. Taira, the up-and-comer, versus Royval, who's kind of more of the vet and like wants that title shot back. So it was a good main event. Grant Dawson had a really nice performance, good TKO and promo afterwards. A few just good finishes in general on the card. Clayton Carpenter, Ramazan Tamarov, putting this card in B. It was solid. I enjoyed it. So moving on, up next, Tuivasa versus Tybura. Let's just put this one in the B tier, the D tier. Yeah, fuck me, man. No, this was rough. This was not a good one. 7 out of 13 of the fights were finished, so kind of a relatively high ratio. So don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't a good card in my opinion, man. Very underwhelming. A lot of just random moments. I mean, in the co-main, or I don't know if this was the co-main, but the Bryan Battle fight where he's fucking up Anschlusa and that ended up in a no contest. That was disappointing. We had 2 split decisions on the main card. OSP's fight was pretty solid. GM3 got a round 2 sub over Brian Barberena. Thiago Moses actually fucking got a win. Round 3 knockout, I don't know. 3 more split decisions. Like, it was a rough card, and seeing Tuivasa just get fucking destroyed on the ground, that's depressing. I get that, over half the fights were finishes, but just a bad card. I'm just gonna, in my opinion, so put it in the D tier. Moving on up next to Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov. This was in Abu Dhabi. I'm going to put this one as like a strong B. People are probably want to put it higher, maybe S or A. But, I enjoyed it. I just didn't think it was all that. Like, I didn't think it was better than like the Paris card or fucking Vegas 100. You know what I mean? Still good nonetheless. They always try and stack the Saudi cards, Abu Dhabi cards. 4 out of 13 fights were finished, so not too many, but still a great card, to be honest. Umar really put himself on the map. Sandhagen's one of my favorites, so seeing him kind of get fucked up like that, it was still a competitive fight. But just, if you're an Umar fan, it was a great day for you. If you're a Sandhagen fan, it was rough. But still, I mean, it was an entertaining fight, relatively. I mean, Shar versus Olasejchik was a solid scrap as well. Joel Alvarez got a really nice KO over Elvis Brenner. Azamat Murzakanov got a good knockout as well over Alonzo Menefield. Figgy versus Cheeto, it was all right. There were some good moments to it. Seeing Figgy shake up Cheeto, get the knockdown was really fucking sick. Michael Chiesa just versus Tony Ferguson. That whole situation was bizarre. I don't know if that makes the fight card better or worse, to be honest. It was just weird. But then Shamil Gaziev, hey, back in the win column. So this card was good. Honestly, maybe I should put it in A. But no, I'm going to keep it as like a strong B. It's probably the best B on this list. It was really good. Maybe I should put it in A. Fuck. No, it's fine. I'm just going to keep it in B. So yeah, B, we're going to move on. Up next, we are doing April 27th, Nicolau versus Perez, another flyweight main event in the Apex. 7 out of 13 fights were finished. I'm putting this in the A tier. This is a really solid A, man. This was a really good fight card. That also was one of those ones that went above and beyond expectations. Alex Perez with a random ass comeback in 2024 got a nice round 2 knockout over Mateus Nicolau, who, has flaws in his game, and could look great sometimes, and could look shit at others. Isn't at the best point in his career right now, but still, man, for Alex Perez to get that random ass win was pretty crazy. Bogdan Guskov round 2 knockout over Ryan Spann in the co-main. That was fun to watch. Shahana to Denise. He just got fraud checked at 309, but there was a hype at this time. He knocked out Austin Lane, which isn't the best win, but knockouts are knockouts. It's fun. Eros Madik, solid knockout. The second half of this card overall was really good. Don't get me wrong, there were moments in the first half, like good scraps, good comebacks, good moments, but like this was a fucking good card, man. Solid A. Just went above and beyond. So moving on to Ankalaev versus Walker 2. This was the first fight night card of the year. Also 7 out of 13 fights finished. I'm going to also put this in the A tier. A low A. I thought it was great, though. I'm not going to lie. Gene Silva beating Weston Wilson. Round 1 KO. That was sick. Gene Silva, dude, just on a fucking absolute tear this year. People forget, man. Joshua Van had a nice round 2 KO. I like Joshua Van, so that was sick to see. Jim Miller, round 3 sub. And then Magomed Ankalaev getting a wild round 2 knockout. I get that. And here's the thing. I've been talking about this lately on the channel. There's this fucking misconception that Ankalaev isn't a finisher just because, he has the Amish beard and the Dagestani vibe, and his last letter, the last 2 letters in his last name ran with EF. So I get it, but like, Magomed does get finishes, and he needs a bit of shit like this to add to his highlight reel to kind of remind people of that, because you get fights like the Rakic fight, the Blachowicz fight, even earlier fights. Like, he has duds sometimes, so he needed a finish, needed someone in the highlight reel, so this was good to see. Good fight card. Crazy card. So putting it in the A tier. Moving on, once again, we're going to be doing Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. I'm also going to put this in the A tier. I did not do this intentionally. We're just going to be fucking throwing them all in there. But dude, Rozenstruik and Gaziev, 6 out of 11 fights were finished. I'm putting it in the A tier. It was a fun card. It was pretty wild at times. Umar Nurmagomedov had a really dominant win. Steve Erceg, round 2 knockout over Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell got a lot of shit this year, dude. Jesus Christ. I see where I retired, man. But Vinicius Oliveira had a wicked flying knee. That whole fight was actually fucking insane. One of the better ones of the year, man. It was wild. And the finish was insane. Christian Leroy Duncan got a good knockout. Rozenstruik and Gaziev was interesting to say the least. A bit of a random ass matchup or whatever, but a lot of people rooting for Gaziev in that one. But Rozenstruik just pieced him up, shut him the fuck down. Gaziev literally just self-imploded. There were moments, lackluster moments, like, you know, the co-main was kind of man, and there's a lame Muhammad Macau fight on here, but overall, pretty wild card, good finishes, good highlights. Put it in the A tier. Up next, we're going to be doing Hermansson versus Pyfer. We'll put this in the C tier. Kind of another one of those random mid ones. Very Apex worthy. Very Apex main event. Joe Pyfer got fucking fraud checked. Bogdan Guskov, good round 1 KO. Carlos Prates, sick round 2 KO over Trevin Giles. Dan Ige got a sick round 1 KO over Andre Philly. Robocop got a sick round 3 TKO. But those were really just the big highlights. It was a bizarre card. Those are the moments that are keeping it higher, and why it's kind of in C. Because there was just kind of a lot of nothingness to this card, in my opinion. It was pretty lackluster. It was kind of weird. The moments I did name were pretty sick. Good finishes for all those guys, ones to remember. But it's just like, I don't know. The majority of the card just wasn't it for me. In the main event, yeah, seeing Pyfer get shut down was admittedly kind of fucking funny, but still. Putting it in the C tier. Strong C, but it's a C. Up next to Dolidze versus Imavov. We're just getting worse here. For February 3rd. Oh my god. We're putting this in the D tier. This wasn't it, man. This was pretty shit for the most part. 5 out of 13 fights were finished. Charles Johnson versus Azat Maxim. That was fight of the night. Pretty good fight, not gonna lie. Randy Brown defeating Muslim Salikov round 1 KO. Also pretty sick. Moicano defeating Drew Dober. Kind of slow co-main, but not the worst thing in the world. Themba Garimbo got a good round 1 knockout. Kind of majority decision main event. Wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world. Two guys that really aren't going to get a big draw going, and the actual fight itself just wasn't good. Boring card. I'm putting it in D. Just nothing really here. There were some good finishes from Randy Brown and Themba Garimbo, but just fucking it is what it is. And like I said, Charles Johnson fight was pretty good, but Moving on up next to Edson Barboza versus Lerone Murphy. You know what? This one's a bit interesting because you could put it in A, B, C, or D, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't know how hardcores are going to feel about this one either, but I'm personally going to put it as a strong C. A bit of another one that's kind of a bizarre card, but there were some good moments. Chaos Williams got a good round 1 KO in the co-main. Adrian Yanez got a much needed round 1 knockout. Kind of was losing a lot of the aura and momentum, but he got what he needed out of it. The main event was a fantastic fight. I mean, I get that a majority of it was just Murphy bringing forward the pressure and just fucking showing elite level and piecing fucking Barboza the hell up. But Barboza did not quit for a second, man. He was still in it. So, weird card, not the best, but definitely not bad by any means. Strong C for me. Again, I feel like that one might piss people off. You might want to hire. It's fucking fair, dude. I'm just saying. I'm gonna put it as strong C. Another one up next that we're gonna be putting in the C tier. We have Rebes versus Namajunas from March 23rd. This one was did have good moments. Don't get me wrong, but I am gonna put it in the C tier because I just feel like there wasn't enough of those good moments to really just have me put it up in B or even A. We had fucking Mick Parkin versus Muhammad Usman opening up the card, which wasn't a great way to set the tone for that, but Peyton Talbot did have a really sick round 2 knockout. The fight against Cameron Simon was just insane. They don't do a lot of those sick prospect versus prospect matchups, but we got to see one in this case, and Talbot just beat him the fuck up. Looked great in there. His most impressive win in my opinion. There were a cool few submissions on the card. Edmund Shabazian got a cool round 1 knockout, but I don't know, not too much here. Wild moments lingered in there for sure, but just a lot of meh as well. So I'm gonna be just putting it in C. Just feeling pretty neutral about it. So moving on up next though, we're gonna be talking about Perez versus Taira. Let's just get this down in the F tier. Also might have snoozed during this one, man. This was fucking rough. 4 out of 11 fights were finished. Just a bizarre finish in the main event. Not that it was bad or really controversial, but just bizarre. Put Taira on the map though. That was cool, but just I don't even want to give this fucking card the breath of day. Just the worst fucking card, man. Arguably. Maybe not the worst, but it was bad. Just a weak card. I literally don't have shit to say. There's nothing to it. There's nothing. It was bad. I'm sorry. So, and it was in the fucking Apex. So fuck, it's shit. So moving on to Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2. I'm gonna put this one in the B tier. This was a nice surprise. This was actually a pretty wild card. I enjoyed it. There were some sick moments. Allen versus Curtis was a great main event. It was a really cool back and forth. Curtis stepping in on short notice to do this rematch was pretty cool. There were hella decisions on this card. Don't get me wrong, and there were 3 splits in a row in the main, which again you do not want to fucking see. But this still was a good card, man. There were good fun fights hidden in here. Not even hidden. They were just good fun fights on this card. Chappelle Mariscal versus Morgan Charrier was a really good fight. Cesar Almeida got a nice knockout. Again, just great fights on this card. Some duds. There were some fucking duds. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm not putting the shit in like A or something like that. But just really good moments hidden in here. So I gotta stop saying fucking hidden in here, bro. Like you need a fucking microscope to look at this shit. But Jesus, good card. Put it in B. Allen versus Curtis. So up next, we're gonna be doing UFC Saudi Arabia, I believe this is. I understand that it's Chimaev right there, but Alaskarov obviously stepped in. So Whitaker versus Alaskarov in Saudi Arabia. We're gonna put this as a strong B. I know that some people might want this in S or A. I know I've been doing this a couple fucking times. I'm sorry. I don't know. And I get that this could be a controversial list, but whatever. But I'm going to put this one in that strong B vibe. So, I mean, 4 out of 11 fights were finished. This was a wild card. There were some really good moments. Volkan Ozdemir had a brutal knockout over Johnny Walker. Jesus Christ, you're going to be hearing that a lot in previous years in the next few. Shara Magomedov had a cool round 3. And not the best round 3 TKO because it was like a late step-up opponent, Antonio Tricoli. Who also just had a recent loss once again as well. Good to see Shara get a highlight, get a finish, but it wasn't the craziest thing in the world. And again, he kind of should have been doing it to the guy like that, because Shara is a big prospect. Volkov absolutely just pieced the fuck out of Pavlovich, absolutely just frustrated him in there, maintained the distance well, controlled the fight, controlled the pace, and he just fucking frustrated Pavlovich in there. Not the most exciting fight, but it's cool seeing Volkov kind of continue the streak. Very underrated fighter. Jared Gordon got robbed, arguably. Once again, seems to happen a fucking lot, dude. Kelvin Gastelum had a whole weigh-in fiasco, all that shit. So that kind of sucked. Ruined that fight against D-Rod, really. Whitaker had a knockout, which was fucking insane, and it was a good one at that, man. So there were some good moments on this card. Saudi is going to be going in a strong B. You could put it a lot higher. That's fucking fine, dude, but that's just where I would put it. So finally, on our last fucking one, we are going to be doing Blanchfield versus Fiorot. That took place March 30th. So this one it wasn't that great. All right, 8 out of 13 fights were finished, which is good. Pretty solid finish ratio. But I'm going to put this one in the C tier. I don't fucking know. Strong C, weak C, whatever the fuck. I don't fucking know with this one. Just a neutral card for me. Fiorot did prove that she was a top dog. Next title challenger for sure. Dominant decision. But like, these WWE main events, man, it's kind of crushing sometimes, all right? Joaquin Buckley, though, sick round 2 knockout over Vicente Luque. Chris Weidman, though, with the eye poke TKO over Bruno Silva, that whole thing was fucking bizarre, and you got to feel bad for Bruno Silva on that one. It just was ridiculous. And then Nate Landwehr had a really good round 1 knockout. Ibo Islam had a nice round 3 knockout for the light heavyweights. Kyle Nelson or Sultan Ruzaboyev got 2 first round 1 finishes, but like, these are the highlights, you know? And again, the Chris Weidman thing was just fucking bizarre. The main event wasn't anything wild. So other than that, like, other than those key moments, man, I'm going to put it in C. The highs were high, but the lows were fucking low. So it is what it is. So, dude, this is the tier list, I believe, man. Thank you to any of you guys that made it this far in the video. I appreciate y'all. I know I didn't cover UFC Tampa, but I just really liked this video idea, to be honest. I really just wanted to do it sooner than later. I was a bit impatient, but I'm sure Tampa, it's a solid lineup and a good main event, so I'm sure it'll be good, but yeah, I didn't want to wait, so that's my bad. I didn't cover Tampa, and yeah, thank you guys so very much for watching all the Smoke MMA. Thanks so much for making this far in the video. Thanks so much for helping me almost get to, what are we at, like almost 500 subs. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Leave your opinions in the comments below. Appreciate y'all.